The impeachment process is a complex proceeding that basically formally accuses and convicts the president of wrongdoing and ultimately could result in his being removed from office. Please note that the president could be impeached, judges could be impeached, Supreme Court justices could be impeached. In this particular situation, we're going to look at the process of impeaching the president. Presidents can be impeached for treason, which would be crimes against the country, bribery, where you are holding something hostage against another person and saying, I will do this if you give me whatever, or high crimes and misdemeanors. This is a somewhat vague phrase that the signers of the Constitution created. High crimes would be like murder or probably assault. Misdemeanors could be as small and petty like a parking ticket. So there's a wide range of things that's really vague and gray area. That'll come into play in just a little bit. The first place impeachment is mentioned in the Constitution is Article 1, Section 2. If you happen to remember, which I hope you do, Article 1 outlines the legislative branch, so that should say, oh, the legislative branch has a role in impeachment. Section 2 addresses the House of Representatives. So Article 1, Section 2 says what the House of Representatives can do in the impeachment process, which we'll talk about in just a moment. The second place impeachment is addressed is Article 1, Section 3, and that outlines the Senate's role in the impeachment proceedings. Impeachment is also addressed in Article 2, Section 4, where it outlines that the president can be impeached for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The first step in the impeachment process is the House of Representatives actually accusing the president of wrongdoing, of those high crimes, misdemeanors, treason, or bribery, and then ultimately carrying out impeachment. To do this, the House of Representatives would start in the House Judiciary Committee. That committee would be a small group of representatives, and they would look at the actions that the president is accused of doing and determine if the entire House of Representatives should listen to the accusations and vote on them. If the House Judiciary Committee decides that there are going to be articles of impeachment drawn up, that means a formal accusation is going to be brought to the House, then they would pass those articles and bring them to the entire floor of the House of Representatives, just like we did with bills. And the House of Representatives would debate and then ultimately vote on whether or not the president is impeached. So the House of Representatives impeaches the president. Okay? A lot of people don't realize that that's just the first step. The second step is for the Senate to hold a trial of impeachment. And that trial needs to determine if they are going to remove the president from office. We have only had 2 impeachments in our history. In both cases, step 1, the president was impeached, but in step 2, the Senate did not vote to remove the president. That confuses a lot of people because a lot of people think if you're impeached, then you're removed. Not so. In the trial that the Senate has, when the senators are acting as the jury, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court presides over the trial. In this picture you see Chief Justice William Rehnquist when he was presiding over Bill Clinton's impeachment trial in the Senate. Impeaching the president is an extremely serious process, and in fact only 2 presidents in our history have been impeached. There was a 3rd president who impeachment proceedings were started against, but they were never completed. Andrew Johnson was the first president to be impeached. This was in 1868, and Andrew Johnson took office after President Lincoln was assassinated. He upset many people with Reconstruction policies and trying to bring the South back into the North, and he was charged with 11 articles of impeachment by the House of Representatives. So he was actually impeached by the House. They're all political in nature. When the United States Senate got to the trial phase, there's a ticket right here of what that would look like if you were able to go and watch it. You would have had to have a ticket to sit up in this section of the gallery up there. And the senators would all be sitting back here as the trial. Andrew Johnson would be over here. Chief Justice would be up here. So they're having a trial to determine if he was going to be removed from office. And while Andrew Johnson was impeached, he was not removed from office. The House of Representatives also started the House Judiciary Committee proceedings to investigate Richard Nixon. And this is that committee right here where they're meeting to maybe bring articles of impeachment against him in the Watergate scandal. Interestingly, President Nixon resigned before the House of Representatives was able to impeach him. So he knew it was coming, but he resigned. Now, a lot of people think that he was actually impeached, and maybe was the only president to be impeached because he's the only one that people know stepped down and resigned from office. But please know, he was not impeached. They started the impeachment proceedings with the House Judiciary Committee, but the entire House did not impeach President Nixon. He resigned and left. So the Senate never even got his part of the trial. President Clinton was the next president and the second president to be impeached. The House of Representatives impeached him for perjury in the testimony surrounding Monica Lewinsky and his failed attempt at claiming or invoking executive privilege. And so the House of Representatives, which was run by Republicans at the time, impeached President Clinton. When the case came to the Senate acted as, again, the jury, and Chief Justice William Rehnquist was the judge, and as you can see in the newspaper on the bottom right, President Clinton was acquitted of the charges. He had 2 articles of impeachment that they were trying to get him on, and he was not removed from office. So Clinton was impeached and not removed. So some people might say, well, why does it matter if you're impeached but not removed? Basically, it's a formal declaration identifying for all of history that you did something wrong, or you did something wrong enough that the House of Representatives was able to prove that you did. It's a political slap on the wrist in a sense because you don't lose your job, you don't lose any power, but it's also not something that you want. It is a check and a balance. It's a way to hold the president accountable for his or her actions in the office, and it is also demonstrating a limited government because the government officials can only do what the Constitution allows. So hopefully that helps. At the bottom of your form, you will also find more links to investigate more detail about the impeachment process, information about Andrew Johnson's impeachment, and also information about President Clinton's impeachment.